Hey, it's Pete at Sudbury Guitars. Today I'm going to talk about how you put on your strings when you change them and how you actually want to get them tied on there so that they'll hold a tune right away. A lot of people come in, I see students that might come in for a guitar lesson and they'll say, oh, I can't, it's not staying in tune very well because I just changed the strings yesterday. And it should stay in tune, not that long after you get those strings on. I'll show you a couple little tricks that you can use to first of all tie them on with the least amount of slack that could possibly come out. That's the main goal. And then the next thing you can do is actually tug some of that slack out manually before you even start tuning it up. So I'm just going to be doing this on my Music Man Steve Morse model right here, and I'm going to dive right into it by taking off these old strings. Now I've heard people that are very careful about how they take the strings off. Man, when I first started doing this a very long time ago, on my Les Paul Custom, I was always very concerned about keeping everything, you know, stable and beautiful, and I would change the strings one at a time, never changing the tension on that neck. Well, that takes a lot of time, so you don't do it like that, man. Especially on a guitar like this, these Strat type guitars, it really doesn't hurt them at all. Just yank the strings off, chop them off with a wire cutter, and get it all wiped down. If you're like me and you play with your fingernails at all, you probably got a lot of this gross fingernail dust built up on the pick guard. It's a good time to get it off. Right now, the reason it's taking me a minute to undo these strings is because the way I have them on here and the way I'm going to show you how to put them on, there's a little bit of a hook at the end that sort of holds it in there. So it is a little bit of a pain in the butt to get them off, but that's a good thing. They don't come off when you don't want them to. All right, so I'll wrestle the rest of those off and clean this mess up a little bit. This guitar is getting a set of 10s, and again, when I say a set of 10s, it just means that the high E string is a 10, and then the whole set is basically, they're all different gauges. Obviously, every string's getting a little bit thicker as we get over towards the low string side, and the idea is that the tension on the strings should be relatively balanced. Like they feel pretty similar amount of pressure that you need to push them down. That's why they balance the gauges the way they do. You can mix and match them any way you want. There's no magic to it other than that. They do make all kinds of oddball sets now, so you can get the light top, heavy bottom, or whatever. I think Steve Morse, the guy whose name is on this guitar, it's a Steve Morse signature model guitar, I think he actually goes a little bit lighter on his E string and maybe A string. So like if you took a typical set of 10s, I guess he would go, and this set came with a 46. I think he goes down to a 42 if I'm remembering that right. I heard that a long time ago. But, so there you go. Different people like to set them up differently. I'm just using a regular set of 10s. I'm really not that picky. Now, I'm gonna bring the camera over here for a little close-up of what's going on. Okay. What I like to do generally on a Strat type headstock, you're going to need about enough string to get from the peg to the opposite side of the headstock. That's a decent rule of thumb to follow. Maybe a little less if you're worried about if you have a really short peg. Some Fenders have not a lot of room right there. These are shallower tuners and the same type of thing you'd find on a lot of other guitars. I'm going to go about a 1/4 inch less than all the way across the headstock. Step 2 there, which is the beginning of our little knot, is to kink that string away from me. See, I've got the loose tail end of the string heading away from me that way. After I've come through the hole this way, I like to line up the hole across the headstock this way to get started. Now I'm going to bring this tail under the main part of the string. Try not to tie up any of the other tuners. And once I get it up underneath this, I want to keep it. I'm keeping tension on this the whole time. This is actually going to be used to bend this piece over in a second. I'm going to pull this around the post, and I'm going to jerk it up and over that string. And see, I'm giving it a little bit of a tug. I'm not just sort of moving in a smooth way. I'm yanking it. Now that's hooked on there. That thing is really only needs about 1.5 times around the peg to hold it pretty good. I still like to get as many windings on as I can. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is it's going to help it stay in tune better if you do it right. Also, there's a thing hilariously called the nut break angle, where that's where the string is going over the nut right here. And you want that on this type of guitar. You want to make sure you get this string to feed off the bottom of this peg. You don't want to wind it up or have it too high up, because then you're going to have a flatter nut break angle, and you really want this to be a pretty harsh angle because you want to stop the vibration of that string. You don't want it chattering around in the nut or just like sounding weak, which is it makes a certain type of a tone and it's not good. So this thing right here is a drill with a peg winder attachment on it. I got this little winder attachment off of Amazon for like $5, and this is just a regular little, very small drill I got from Home Depot. There it is. Now that this thing is on here, and I just pushed it down a little bit more, what I'm going to do next is trim it off very, very close to the peg, as close as I can, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. The main one is I don't like getting poked. I'll take the back of my diagonal cutters right now and push that thing down in there, especially on these slower strings. So you're less likely to get poked by those little tails. If you've ever grabbed a student's guitar and started trying to help them tune it or something during a lesson, and this old rusty, jaggedy piece of string just stabs you and a drop of blood comes out, and it's not the best thing. So I try to keep mine tucked in. Now I'm going to point out something right here. This did not wind on the way I wanted it to. I see now I have made a mistake. I'm going to unwind this a little bit by hand. Sometimes my little drill there gets out a little bit ahead of me. So I had to push that down so that this coil is now under the previous coil. So each one of my little loops, they go down and they are very tight together. Where is that thing? They're kind of, you know, pretty close together. Now, sometimes I'll take a little tiny flat screwdriver, like this one right here. And this is not something you need to do necessarily. It's just it's an extra little thing. All I'm gonna do is put that underneath it and spin it a little bit against the nut that holds the little tuner on there. And now my coils are just nice and tight against each other. Now, what did that do for me? Just kept it from going out of tune a tiny bit one time in the near future, okay? Every bit of slack that I can keep out of this end of the string, everything past the nut here, I've got to keep this as tight as possible, keep the slack out of it, because all that slack is going to want to pull out, and that's why your guitar doesn't want to stay in tune when you first tune it up. Now, notice this note right here. That, super flat, but even when it gets sort of close, there's a lot of rattling around. But I don't care about it being in tune. What I care is about it being relatively close to the tension it's going to be at when it's in tune. And now I'm just going to yank on this string. I'm not going to try to kill it. I'm going to go over here above the fretboard. I'm going to pull up on it a little bit. I'm pulling straight up so that I don't snag it up in the nut. I pull all the tension out of the saddle. There can be tension stored behind the saddle, behind the nut. I'm getting rid of that, evening up anything, equalizing the tension all along that string. Notice it went way flat. Now I just tuned it up again. Now from here, watch this. Give it a yank, it's gonna go flat again. Not as much though. Yank it, I'm pulling it right up out of that saddle. It's the low E string, I'm being pretty hard on it. Now, I'll yank it again. I'll lift the guitar up by the string, okay? I'm not recommending you do that, I just want you to see that I'm putting some tension on that string. It didn't change. I mean, maybe a tiny, tiny bit. It's still pretty good. So again, yankety yank, no change. That string is good. So that's how you put it on and make sure that it stays on there right, okay? I'm just gonna repeat that for the other 5 strings, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. All right, so you wanna get the hole lined up across the headstock. Put the string through from the opposite side. Pull it tight, keep 2 or 3 inches of slack, kink that string away from you, put it under, kink it over. Just kink that tail up out of the way and wind it up. And you just do the same thing on all your strings. Here we go with the D string. You're gonna get that thing through the hole, kink it over. There it goes. I know these are going by pretty quickly. It's at 4 times speed, but It's the same thing over and over again that I walked through on the E string. So if you need to see it slow, you can back up a couple of minutes. And it's important to get those windings to stack up in a nice, one string thick coil all the way down. In other words, the string never doubles back over itself. It doesn't create any bubbles or kinks or just loose little points of slack in the winding. Sometimes if you look at your strings, you may see what I just described going on your peg there, and you don't want that. So this is a way to keep it nice and tight all the way down. So what I'm going to do is take a minute to tune this thing up, and then I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to try and show you how it's going to stay in tune, even if I yank on the strings a little bit or play it a little bit right away. Now I've just put the strings on. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow or 2 days from now to expect it to be in tune. I want this to stay in tune now. So I'm going to tune it up real quick and plug it in. All right, so I tuned it up for real, and it's just sounds like it's in tune. Now what I'm going to do to check it is just go through and yank all the strings a little bit. Just give them a tug. I'm not trying to fix the tuning. I'm trying to make sure there's no extra slack in there that's going to come out. And it's still in tune. So that tells me that I did a good job. I've got my strings tied on here correctly. I've got all the slack out of them. And now I can just play the thing, and I'm not going to worry about it going out of tune. In fact, I'll be teaching guitar lessons in this room later on for a few hours today, and it'll be fine. When I pick it up later this afternoon, it's going to be in tune, and that's the way it should be. So if you put them on the way I showed you, and give a couple little tugs, get them nice and snug, you should have no problems. And if you have any questions about it or you need any other details I might have left out, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I'll definitely get back to you with any info I can. All right, well, there you go. Go change your strings, and let's keep these things in tune. All right, thanks for watching.